With their very own UFC champion and a rapidly growing number of fighters on the roster, Russia is certainly making its presence felt in the UFC. As well as the established veterans, there's a new wave of talent coming out of the region, already making their way up the UFC rankings. So it's time to take 5 with UFC analyst Dan Hardy and see who he's picked as his ones to watch.
2018 was a big year for the Russians. With Khabib leading the charge and becoming the lightweight champion of the world, it cast a light on some of the other emerging talent coming out of Russia. Here's my list of the top 5 Russian fighters I think are positioned ready for a breakout year. We kick things off with the undefeated heavyweight Dmitry "The Wicked Machine" Sosnovsky. Dmitry Sosnovsky made a name for himself on the Russian circuit, and he's a big, strong, powerful heavyweight. He made his UFC debut against Mark Godbeer in 2018 and looked fantastic.
This is where he's dangerous, John. He's excellent to control the mount position. Finishing the second round strong. Look at this, they'll show me tight.
Sosnovsky, the time is ready, and it's a debut win by submission for the Russian.
The most important thing for me, though, is that he's got Alexei Oleinik in his corner. Oleinik is without a doubt one of the best submission finishers in the heavyweight division. And if he can impart some of that knowledge onto Sosnovsky, he's going to be a hell of a force in the future. The heavyweight division for many years has been dominated by the big power punchers, but a lot of these Russian fighters coming through now, they've got the size and the power to compete, but their grappling skills is what's setting them apart. Sosnovsky's still young in his UFC career, but you've got to think with the ground skills this guy's demonstrated throughout his career so far and the power that he's got in his hands, he only needs to take out 1 or 2 big names before he finds himself in some really important fights. 2019 could be the coming out party for Dmitry Sosnovsky. Coming in at number 4, the Sambo specialist, Ramazan Emeev. Ramazan Emeev is a perfect example of the fighters that come out of the Dagestani region. He's technically well-rounded, he's got a combat Sambo background, he's a national champion in pankration as well, which is very, very similar to mixed martial arts. So he's got 2 sports there that have served as a great foundation before he even stepped into professional mixed martial arts. He made his UFC debut in the middleweight division against Sam Alvey. Emeev mauled him. He threw him around, he beat him up, he dominated him in every range. With the technique that he's got, as well as the way that he fights, that grinding, push-forward style, he's not only testing people's technical ability, but he's also testing their heart. See if they can hang with him, see if they can keep up with him. And if they can't, it's going to be a rough night.
She goes, oh dear!
Huge right hook across the chin.
Now moving down to the welterweight division, he's going to carry that size and strength and power with them. And you couple that with his technical ability, I think he's a real problem for this division. He's had 3 fights in the UFC so far, and although he's flown under the radar a little bit, I think that perfectly positions him for a big 2019. My number 3 pick, the undefeated welterweight, Alexei Kunchenko. This guy's a technical monster. He came into the UFC at 18-0, undefeated with 13 knockouts, and immediately he was put in with a very, very tough opponent. You know, Thiago Alves, obviously a former welterweight title contender, very, very talented Thai boxer, but Kunchenko was just a little bit better everywhere on that night.
A lovely selection of shots there by Kunchenko.
And not only was he a little bit better, but he was just so calm. He was so stoic in the way that he approached the fight. Second up, he got Yushin Okami, another veteran, another big athlete for that weight division, and he just wrecked him.
Kunchenko looking really good here. Nice work on the inside. Beautiful right hand over the top.
It's fair to say that Kunchenko is slightly undersized for this weight class, but when you see him perform, the ferocity that he fights at, the pace that he keeps on his opponents, it makes up for the fact that he might be slightly smaller than these guys. I think this year is the year that we see if Kunchenko is ready to take on the top of the division. From my personal experience of researching him, he's absolutely ready. 20-0, welterweights, watch out.
Alexei Kunchenko!
At number 2 in the list, the powerful young bantamweight, Petr Yan. I can't remember the last time I was as excited for a debut fighter as I was for Petr Yan's appearance in Singapore.
Welcome to the UFC, Petr No Mercy Yan.
He's a terrifying individual. I love watching him fight. because the way that he cuts people down, he kind of scoops them into the fence by switching his stance, a lot like TJ Dillashaw does. Switching his stance and throwing combination punches at the same time.
Just wants to make the octagon as small as possible. If he could fight in a phone box, he absolutely would.
Always got his eyes laser focused on his opponent as well. It's very difficult to rattle him. He doesn't seem to be uncomfortable at any point. It seems like everything that happens in the fight is happening because he expected it. It plays out in front of him. And because he's so disciplined in the way that he fights, there are so few opportunities for his opponent to find their way in. He puts these combinations together so well, so people find themselves on the back foot being very defensive against the fence. When they throw back, he's not even there. He's around at the side and he's already attacking them with the next combination.
That's it! In his debut, Peter Yan gets the TKO victory.
In his second fight in the UFC, he had a fight of the night performance against Jin Soo Son. And what this showed me as an analyst is that not only can he get guys finished early, but if he doesn't get them finished early, he can beat them up for the duration of the fight and dig deep as well if he needs to.
Beautiful work, look at this.
I think by the end of 2019, everybody will know who Peter Yan is, not just the bantamweight division.
Piotr Nomercia!
It's an easy pick for the #1 spot, Zabit Magomed Sharapov. He may look like a 1970s geography teacher, but when he straps on the gloves, get out of the way. I mean, he comes at you with all kinds of stuff that you're not going to expect. Showtime kicks in his debut off the fence.
Look at the athleticism.
Oh, shades of Anthony Pettis there.
Spinning back elbows. I mean, you can see how excited I'm getting just talking about it.
He is spectacular. I mean, what an incredibly diverse skill set this man has.
He's taken that Russian Dagestani combat sambo background and he's taken it over to work with Mark Henry, one of the best striking minds in the sport. So he's now working alongside the likes of Frankie Edgar, Eddie Alvarez, guys that are only going to add things to his game. And every single one of the guys that I've spoken to in this camp all said the same thing. Watch out for Zabit, he's going to take over the sport. I feel like he's so confident at every range. It allows him to be very present. It allows his attacks to be very fluid because he's not necessarily stepping in there with an idea of this is exactly what I need to do in this fight.
It's the way he's doing it, too. It's so fluid.
If a submission presents itself, he'll take it.
Oh, look at this.
He's got a bit of a banana split.
Oh, man. Look at that. That is insane.
But ultimately, he wants to stand and show you some of that really, really fancy wushu striking that he's got. There's good reason why Zabit was my #1 pick. He's exciting, he's popular, the marketing team love him, the UFC executives love him, the matchmakers love him. The only people that don't like him are the people that share a division with him. With the momentum that he has, I wouldn't be surprised if he finds himself in the title shot before the end of 2019.